Guess to the cloud. Okay. All right. Hi, guys. Hi, Facebook world. So I am here with Stephanie Coonrat, and Stephanie works for Fairway, but she works for a unique department. I don't guess I really know of any other lenders that have a department like this. Maybe they do, and I just don't know about it. But I love that we have this to offer our clients, and it's our credit tool department. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that is today and what that isn't, and hopefully give folks some tips on how to deal with things on their credit. But overall, just talking about mortgage and credit today. So I'm going to start, Stephanie. Tell my Facebook friends about yourself just a little bit, like maybe how you ended up at Fairway, just a little bit about you.
Sure. So I've been in finance for quite a while. A lot of that had to do more with sales. And then I found the job at Fairway, and I could just tell Fairway was different. And it was going to be more of a role in helping others. And the moment I interviewed and met Fairway, I knew this was, where I wanted to be. And we started pretty small. It was just me, and then we slowly hired some people in Arizona, and slowly kept growing the department. And now we're pretty much working with everybody in Fairway. So
That's awesome.
Come a long way. Yeah.
I love that. I remember we were so excited because we got to be one of the testing branches. So we got to introduce to you guys pretty early on, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. So I'm excited to tell clients about it and to tell the world about it and just talk a little bit about, what it is that Credit Tool offers. So along that vein, can you kind of explain to folks, so, a lot of people hear about credit repair and credit restoration and all those things. Talk a little bit about Credit Tool and how that might compare to credit repair and what it is that we do and what we don't do. Because I think that's important for folks to understand.
Yeah, the term credit repair can be so confusing, and people kind of use it as a blanket term, not really knowing exactly what that means. So here at Fairway, we are helping repair, amend, and improve scores, but we are in no way anything like credit repair. So we do not charge borrowers anything. We don't dispute anything for them. We don't contact their creditors. And it's not like a chance thing where we're just trying to do a whole bunch of things and we'll see what happens. We actually use specific mortgage tools that allows us to run simulations, and we can play around with putting together the best possible plan for the borrower. So if we know roughly what their time frame is, how much money they have to work with, we actually go into the simulator, play around with it, and find the best option for them. And it's step-by-step instructions. You follow this plan. You don't make any other changes. It's pretty much a bulletproof plan. If the loan officer needs the borrower at a 620, we'll build in a couple cushions there, and our simulator will show they should get to like a 627, 628 just to have a buffer.
So it's not necessarily for everybody, and it's highly targeted.
Yep, the good thing about Fairway and who we work with, we don't have any kind of minimum score requirement. So we do work with people who currently don't qualify, and then we work with people who qualify, but they need a higher score for down payment assistance. And then we actually do help clients that have, let's say, a 758 and a 760 gets them better pricing. So we do work with a big scope of people. And everybody's different. What works for one person's credit might not work for another. And that's why we don't really do any guesswork. It's 100% according to the tools, answering their questions, and kind of being a cheerleader and a coach during the process. Since some plans might take 6 to 8 months, they always have a contact person to reach out to if they have questions or if they notice any changes on their credit report.
That's good. I like that. And I've noticed that in some of the borrowers that you guys have worked with me, I'll see communication back and forth between them over a time period. where they have someone to go back to, I guess, to ask questions and, just make sure they're doing the right things, because it's not for the faint of heart to deal with things on your credit. And I always tell people it's, you have to have the backbone to make those phone calls and the bravery to make those phone calls. Because I think a lot of people are nervous about that kind of stuff. I mean, that's just a natural thing to be nervous about that kind of stuff.
For sure.
So go ahead.
I was just going to say, some people are certainly hesitant because maybe they've worked with a credit professional before. So we definitely are empathetic and helpful, and just try and cheer them on along the way.
Yeah. Give them a little support. Yeah. You kind of talked about the borrowers that you guys work with and the scores. So it really doesn't matter where their score is right now. It could be an extensive plan for someone. It could be a lengthy plan, or it could be one or two items, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So kind of talk about how that plan is put together and what a person can expect, like how long that might take. You talked a little bit about the follow-up system, but what does that look like for someone?
Yep. So once we have that plan in place, the plan, if you look at it and you read through it, it gives step-by-step instructions. So it might just be one or two items, paying down credit cards. It might entail, paying off a collection or two and requesting them to delete it from the credit report. But it's step-by-step instructions and pretty easy to navigate. And then in terms of following up with them, if it's a quick, immediate 30-day plan, we'll typically follow up every maybe 2 weeks, depending on if they're under contract or anything like that. For the more lengthy plans, if they're 8 months to a year, we'll typically follow up every 4 to 6 weeks, depending on their preference and, how intense the plan is. If there's a bunch of action items and they're working through it, we'll follow up a little bit more often, just to see how they're doing.
And let's say somebody's kind of working through that plan and they hit a roadblock or something. They have a contact they can call back and say, hey, I tried this and here's where I'm at. Any other suggestions, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we actually have a lot of clients that will follow up maybe halfway throughout the plan, and they'll say they noticed either a collection pop up on their credit report or a late payment or some kind of change. And depending on what that change is, we might repull credit and rebuild the plan, or I might just say, let's look at that collection agency. Do they delete? Do you have the funds to delete it? Why don't you contact them and then see if we can just continue on with the plan that you're working on.
Gotcha. Okay. So I think this is really important to talk about because I get a lot of people who will come to me and they'll say, hey, my Credit Karma score is blank. And so I think I, am ready to have my credit pulled and ready to buy a house because my score is in the qualifying range now. And I know Credit Karma has some tools within their system where you can do kind of a simulation. And so, people are totally confused by how many different scores there are to start with. And then they don't really even understand there's different models. So can you talk a little bit about those differences?
Yeah, that's actually a question we get probably every day. The consumer score, which they would see on Credit Karma, versus the mortgage score, they can differ anywhere from like 20 to 100 points, which is crazy. And it's super confusing for the borrower. And I remember when I bought my house, my Credit Karma score, I want to say, was about 40 points higher than the mortgage score. So it is certainly confusing. The reason they're different is they use different algorithms. And if someone were to apply for a credit card, an auto loan, and a mortgage all in the same day, they're going to come back with 3 different scores just because each one uses a different algorithm. So, I explain that to the borrower. Usually they understand. It's still very frustrating. And even consumer scores can differ. Like, for instance, I have Discover and Capital One, and I check my credit scores on their sites too, and they're always different. It's just consumer score is not typically a real score. Credit Karma's tools will definitely point you in the right direction in improving your score, but it's not going to be anything close to the mortgage score.
Right. Well, and I know they don't even use Fair Isaac, right? They use Vantage, which is completely different. And another reason for people to be confused. So I can understand a consumer's frustration if they think that their score is one thing and they come to us and it's something completely different, because it's rare for us on the loan officer side to pull credit and have that Credit Karma be lower than the mortgage FICO. Typically, it's like in your situation where Credit Karma was higher, although occasionally it has come in backwards. And so I tell people there's no rhyme or reason to it. It just, yeah, it's I always tell people, and this may be, but this is the analogy that I think is the easiest for me to understand. I always say, think of FICO like the iPhone. There's a lot of different versions, and we're still at the early version, and you are seeing the later versions when you're out in the consumer world. And everybody knows iPhone, so everybody seems to get that analogy.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like it.
So what are some of the first things that, we should look at so that we can advise clients on, what they might need to do to increase their score? What are some of the things that they can be doing to increase their score organically?
So one of the first things we look at is credit utilization. So if they have a couple credit cards with really high balances, high utilization, that's typically the first thing that we'll do is lower that utilization. A lot of people think if it's at 30%, it's perfect. And 30% is kind of the general rule of thumb where if you go over 30, it can impact your score negatively. But a lot of times to get the best possible score, 10% is kind of more of the sweet spot. Now, if they are, let's say, at a 654 and they need a 660, most likely they're not going to have to pay them all down to 10% or anything like that. We'll use the simulator to make sure it's the cheapest and, best plan for them.
Yeah.
But credit utilization is definitely the first thing that we look at. And then second, usually we'll take a look at collections and see if they have any medical collections or any collections with collection agencies that we know are pretty easy to work with. And typically if they pay the collection, the creditor will delete it. And of course, we always make sure that they confirm that before they make the payment. But the great thing about that is if they do delete it, it's like it never existed. And that usually gives them a pretty big boost in score. And then it also cleans up the credit report quite a bit as well.
So I have that happen quite a bit where people will call a collection agency and they'll say that they're going to give them a deletion letter, but they don't want to provide it before payment. What do you advise clients on stuff like that?
So about 5 years ago, most collection agencies would provide a letter stating if you pay this amount by this date, we will delete the collection. Typically, I don't find that they're providing that letter beforehand anymore. A lot of them will provide it after the payment posts to the account, so anywhere between like 24 hours and 10 days. And then there are some collection agencies that will delete, but they will not provide any kind of documentation. So it might take roughly 30 days, give or take, for it to come off naturally.
So if a collection agency tells a borrower that they will delete it and then they don't, does the borrower have any recourse?
So I always tell borrowers to write down the name of who they spoke with and what time, because 99% of the time the call is recorded. And thankfully enough, I've never had that happen in a little over 5 years. Usually they do hold their word, their calls are being recorded, and they do have, policies and stuff that they They stand by. So if they say they will, they typically will.
Okay, that's good to know, because I'm always nervous for clients not to have that letter in their hand, but that's really good advice because those calls are recorded.
And I've jumped on the phone a couple times if I've had a borrower who spoke with a collection agency and they're just not easy to work with, or they're saying they won't delete where we know they've deleted in the past. We can definitely do a conference call if needed and, see if we can speak to a supervisor, but usually they're pretty easy to work with.
That's good. And I didn't know you guys would do that. So that's good to know that you can help out that way if it gets to that point.
Yeah, especially if they're under contract.
Yeah. That was making me think about another question, but I'll probably come back to it because I forgot what it was. So many things running through my mind as you're talking. So what about, we have borrowers who occasionally will come to us who don't have any credit. They've just never used credit. They didn't believe in credit, or it's been a long time since they've had credit. Because I do have some folks who maybe they got into credit trouble young and then they shied away from it. And so there's, everything on their report is so old, there's no score reporting. So, what's like the minimum that someone needs to have on their credit if they're kind of starting from scratch or starting over like that in order to see that FICO generate?
Yeah, we see that quite a bit. Typically, we'll recommend a secured credit card. If they've had credit in the past, they might not even need a secured card. You can always apply for a regular credit card and they'll let you know if, you have to put the deposit down. But that's usually the best place to start. We do have people who don't have a credit card, but maybe they just opened up an auto loan like a month or two ago. And typically you just need to have credit reporting to the bureaus for at least 6 months for a score to populate. But if, let's say, the borrower had a couple of accounts a couple of years ago, everything's been paid off, and then they lost their scores just since they haven't had anything reporting recently, typically opening up a credit card, and then once it starts reporting, it will populate scores, within 30 days or so.
Okay.
So that's why we love the simulator. We can let you guys know for sure if it would be about 30 days or if they do have to wait the 6 months.
Okay, good to know. I did not know that at all. I was thinking, it took longer than I thought. It took about 6 months for everybody, honestly. So, it is funny to me how credit is so specific to a person, and you can do the same thing to one credit and do the same thing to another credit, and you'll get a completely different outcome. And I think that's confusing also for borrowers. We say, we try to help you and give you as much information as we can, but we don't always know because we don't always know how that algorithm is going to react based on all the information that's from the past. Mm-hmm. So let's say that somebody, has a plan that you guys have put together for them and you've, sent it to them and done the analysis with them, and they just either they don't have the time or they don't feel comfortable doing all those phone calls and that kind of thing. Is that then a person who needs to get some help at that point from a credit restoration company, or, that really is their only outlet?
It kind of depends on what their credit profile looks like. If they just have a couple credit cards to pay down and maybe a charged off account or one collection to pay, I wouldn't say it's worth the money to have them work with credit repair. But if they do have several collections and charged up accounts that either are really, really old, they don't want to pay them, maybe they're incorrect, it might make sense to work with a credit repair company, but I would say only if it's really like a bunch of accounts that need to be worked on, because it does cost them quite a bit of money. That's why I love our service. Every penny that they have can go towards their plan.
Yeah, I do. I love that. And I do think it's important that everybody realizes not every credit restoration company is equal. There are some companies that do charge quite a bit. There are some companies that charge in my opinion, very economically. And then there are some who charge you forever and your score doesn't move at all. I mean, I know some good ones and I know some bad ones. And I always tell people, if you are going to need that type of service, please reach out for a referral from someone that you know that knows that service, because you don't want to just rely on an ad or a TV commercial or any of the other number of ways, a billboard, those kind of things. So I think it's very important. That's one of the most important areas where people can lose money, unfortunately.
For sure.
Yeah. So how does someone get to you guys?
So step one is to contact a loan officer at Fairway. Loan officer pulls credit and gets the whole file started. And if they do need any kind of credit help, they submit the request right through Encompass. It comes over to our team, and then we get it assigned to a credit analyst. And we try and get plans delivered same day. We always say 48 hours is the max, but we do our best to get the plan out as quickly as we can. And then we always make sure to include the loan officer in all of the emails, so the loan officer always has a copy of the plan, can jump in and, reach out to the borrower as well. You got the credit plan, do you have any questions? And just be part of the whole conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like when it's the loan officer, the credit analyst, and the borrower together communicating, it's just the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Well, we certainly appreciate you guys, and we appreciate everything that you do. And we appreciate Fairway for having Credit Tool as a department, because we want to do everything that we can to help someone get into their home. That's our goal. That's everybody's goal at Fairway, is to help someone get into a home. And from, your department to our department to our closing teams, I mean, everybody does such a good job for that. So we appreciate you guys.
We appreciate you guys. We have a job because of you guys.
Well, thank you. Well, okay. So if anyone has questions for Stephanie, I didn't tag Stephanie in this, but if you have questions for Stephanie, please put them in the chat and I'll make sure that I get those over to her so that she can answer anything that you might have. And we will certainly respond to that. If you have something that's private and you just want to instant message me through Facebook, you can do that, or, you have my email or contact information, you can reach out to me. But we certainly want to help as many people as we can. We know that, everybody has gone through tough times recently. Everybody's got a life story, and, everybody needs help and everybody needs to own a home, in my opinion. So we want to help everybody get there. So if we can help you guys do that, please reach out to us, because we would love to. And thank you so much, Stephanie. It was great to chat with you today. I hope that you have a great rest of the week. And if I do get any of those questions, I will be in touch.
Sounds great. Thanks for including me. And it was great talking with you.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.